this segment, we're going to take a look at the politics of impeachment. The House, as you know, just wrapped up its second round of hearings, and we heard the charges announced this morning. It doesn't look like, though, that this has moved the needle much when it comes to voters. An average of major polls show that 48% of the electorate support impeachment and removal from office for Trump. That's nearly where we started with about a month ago. If anything, the number's probably down just a little. Republicans, though, they're looking to capitalize on impeachment. They see it as a winning election issue. They're outspending Democrats on impeachment ads both online and on TV. The GOP focusing particular attention on Democrats in swing districts and in those areas where Trump won in 2016. Republicans that the Washington Post spoke with, they're hoping this strategy will help them actually expand the GOP base. Well, join us now to discuss Democratic strategist Max Burns. And Max, you even get the sense when you hear some of the behind-the-scenes reporting last night of Democrats on trying to figure out how many charges to pursue, whether to leave it at the 2 that we came with or go with 4, etc. Depending on how purple your district is, there is a lot of concern in Democratic circles that this may not play well as much as they agree on principle with where they're going with impeachment, that it might hurt them in the ballot box come next November. How worried should they be?
I think that's one of the reasons that you saw Chairman Nadler go so narrow on this and focus specifically on obstruction and abuse of power related to Ukraine, as opposed to going broad on the Mueller report on tax and emoluments and bribery, is to make this more palatable to purple state Democrats that have to go back now and sell this. It's also one of the reasons it was smart of Nancy Pelosi today to pair this with the USMCA agreement so that Democrats can go back and say that they aren't obstructing this agenda, that we're getting work done, but also holding the president accountable, which is, I think, a sustainable strategy going into the election.
But I know it's hard to look to history as any guide because this is such a unique circumstance. But let's assume, as we do, they've got enough votes. She's going to whip them in line here, and almost every Democrat's going to vote for impeachment when it gets to a full floor vote in the House, and then it gets to a Senate. But they don't come close to the 20 Republicans, let alone every Democrat they'd need here to actually get a conviction. If you impeach, but you don't convict and obviously don't remove, at the end of the day, is that fodder for the GOP that, okay, you did a political exercise here, but at the end of the day, people didn't agree with you that it was enough to remove a president from office, and look what you put the country through?
I don't. And I think if you look at history, even impeachments that have not gone on to conviction, like Bill Clinton, have had a negative effect on the party in power come to the next election. And really, no matter what the Senate does, it's not the wrong thing to do something right and uphold the powers of Congress to hold the president accountable. We know that Senate Republicans are going to stand by their man no matter what he did, even if that means disregarding their views previously held on impeachment, as Lindsey Graham has. But what's important is that House Democrats, at least, and Republicans that may come along in the House, take a stand and say that the Congress will not abdicate their responsibility to investigate and hold the executive branch accountable.
So, Max, let's talk about some Democrats, and there's two very different approaches to this. One, as you saw here from Mayor Bloomberg.
Unfortunately, the evidence seems to be serious enough that I would, if I was in the Senate or in the House, I would vote for impeachment. But I don't think we should do this lightly. I think it's a great danger. You influence the political process. Fundamentally, I think the electorate should decide who they're led by. And they have an opportunity to throw them out every 4 years.
To that end, Bloomberg, while he didn't come out in opposition to impeachment, he believes that the party and the other fellow candidates are walking into the lion's den here. And not only are they going to struggle, but they're going to have it handed to them by the president come next fall if someone other than him is the nominee. Now, obviously, we can argue it's self-serving, but he's starting to percolate in the polls. He's going to be spending a ton of money. He's basically making the argument that for the lane of the adult in the room with competency, he's your guy. How much are you hearing the fellow Democrats, because of the power of the purse here, believe that he's for real?
So, yeah, it's important to note that I think that both Tom Steyer and Mayor Bloomberg who are self-funding entirely, have come in almost at their ceiling because they're advertising across essentially 50 states, while most other campaigns only have the funds to advertise in one or two. So it's not a surprise that if they're able to pull from all of these voters that no one else has talked to yet, of course they're going to get a boost at the start. What concerns me is that this makes a mockery of the Democratic platform of ending money's corrosive influence in our politics. We say that we don't want a politics and a primary that is run by billionaire campaigns that can fund themselves and essentially replace the will of voters with their own issues. And yet, that's exactly what we see in Mike Bloomberg. And one of the reasons I think he's going to see a real struggle getting past maybe 5 or 6% nationally.
But Max, can it be argued because you and I haven't, but I'm sure we've heard, and they're legitimate points, that for those who have to have their hand out here, that there's political favors that are always due. I've had this argument many times when Bloomberg was a candidate for mayor. He's spending his own money, he's beholden to no one, and consequentially, he'd be going into the White House with a blank slate and no political favors due.
But we see that that's what billionaires in the past have said. That's what President Trump said. And that does not change your values. And the fact that Mayor Bloomberg has gone soft on impeachment, that he's brought forward things like stop and frisk that are antithetical to democratic criminal justice reform values, I think matters more than the fact that he's willing to pay a lot of money to his canvassers and fund his own campaign. If your campaign doesn't come from voters and build up support with individual voices, you're running in the wrong primary.
I'm curious your reaction to this soundbite, because I got to tell you, even our production meetings, it was divided as to whether this helped or not. This Vice President Biden in Iowa, when he was confronted by an audience member.
I've got two problems with you. One is you're damn near as old as I am. You're too old for the job. I got a question I want you to answer. We all know Trump has been messing around in the Ukraine over there, but you, on the other hand, sent your son over there to get a job and work for a gas company that he had no experience with gas or nothing, in order to get access for the president. So you're selling access to the president just like he was. So
You're a damn liar, man. That's not true. And no one has ever said that. No one has proved that.
I see it on the TV.
You see it on the TV. No, I know you do. Look, the reason I'm running is because I've been around a long time and I know more than most people know. And I can get things done. That's why I'm running. And you want to check my shape on, let's do push-ups together here, man.
Max, do you think that helped or hurt him?
I mean, honestly, what Joe Biden should have said is that, you got tricked. You saw something on TV that was untrue, that this is part of a coordinated campaign to besmirch his reputation, to spread propaganda, not challenging someone to a push-up contest. And this is one of the concerns, especially among younger voters like myself, that we have of Joe Biden, is that he is not the same candidate he was in 2016 or 2012. He seems to be struggling to find his narrative. He's very adversarial with individuals. He's encouraging people to vote Republican if they don't like him. It's almost as if he's missed the memo on where the party has gone since President Trump was elected. And challenging people to push-up contests is not going to win you Iowa.
I grant you it's, not Mr. Smith goes to Washington, Max, but I will say we have to realize the window of time that we're in. And because everything is red meat and it's Trump and it's whatever else, I think people in the last 3 years have been conditioned to not just confrontation here, but, and again, I'm not saying this is great for the Republic here, but, they want some entertainment with this as well. For whatever it's worth, because you don't know what you're going to get from one thing to the next. They're getting that with Biden. Don't you think the electorate wants a little bit of glucose? And don't you think they're itching for a good fight in the general?
I do, but there's a difference between being bellicose and challenging people to push-up competitions and actually having a targeted aggression that focuses on the problem, which is President Trump and the ruinous policies that his trade wars brought to Iowa, that student debt crisis has brought to the country, you can have a fight and give people a good show without going way off into the weeds and challenging people and saying you're smarter than them. I think you've seen Elizabeth Warren and actually Pete Buttigieg do a great job of bringing a show to things that actually focuses on policy and sounds like a Democratic argument.
All right, Max. It is never dull week to week, and we'll be talking to you soon again about 2020. Appreciate the time.
Thanks.
All right, everybody. We take a quick break. When we come back, a few personal words. Stay with us.